Hi. Before I start, I just want to thank everyone who has supported me through this experience. You mean the world to me. On a cold winter night, I found myself crying until there was no more tears left in me. I got out of bed and tiptoed to the bathroom so my mom won't hear me. I don't want her to see me in such a weak state of mind. I try to wash my face, but begin to cry more. To understand why I was crying, you have to understand what I experienced here at Wayland High School last year in my US history class. We were reading a book called The New Jim Crow. It touched on various topics such as race, economic issues, and social control. Most importantly, why a person of color, someone like me, has a higher chance of being incarcerated than a white person, like most of you. As an African-American male, I felt that the book was speaking to me. That book changed my life. After reading the book, I felt transformed and ready to come into class to discuss it. Little did I know, I would face rejection in front of my classmates. Despite the evidence laid out in the book, many of them made comments from, "This isn't true. What the author is saying just isn't true," to, "Well, that's because we live in safer areas than blacks and Latinos do." I was in utter shock and taken aback. Well, do they think I'm dangerous? Do they think I live in a dangerous area? Do my classmates really see me like that? Well, I had an epiphany that day. I'm here to refute everything those people said that day. I'm here to provide the facts. Many of you probably view our mass incarceration system as a great thing, a system that cracks down on crime and tosses away the bad guys. I'm here to tell you that's not exactly what our mass incarceration system does, and not everyone views it that way. I don't view it that way. America represents 5% of the world's population, yet we make up 20% of the world's prison population. We're referred to as the world's largest jailer. Currently, overpopulation in US prisons is a huge problem. However, there's a bigger problem that needs to be addressed, and that is the overrepresentation of brown-skinned people in prisons. Why is it that brown-skinned people make up majority of the prison population? Well, being the curious teen I am, I researched and found out that people of color have been characterized as dangerous and uncivilized ever since they stepped foot in America, in chains. This characterization has been ingrained in the American race for over centuries. Understanding this aspect of our history is vital to understanding why people of color are targeted. We've seen this through many systems that viewed people of color as a threat. Slavery, a system that literally tore black people apart. Segregation, literacy tests, poll taxes, were other various ways that hindered the community of colored people. Mass incarceration is no different. Here's why. One event in time that highlighted the inequality in prison systems was the war on drugs. During this time, the law was cracking down on drugs and giving long prison sentences to people who had possession of cocaine, crack cocaine, or really any type of drug. However, majority of the people getting incarcerated during this time were people of color. This frustrated me because, as an African-American male, why should I be subjected to more heinous punishment? Because I have darker skin? This system literally swept blacks and Latinos off the streets into jail cells. I want to tell you a story about a man, an African-American male who lived in a lower economic neighborhood in Boston during this time. His family immigrated a generation before, and he was a Boston University attendee. He had a bright future ahead of him. However, he didn't always make the right decisions. One day, he decided to help his friend out with a drug swap. Long story short, he was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Although this was his first drug offense, why was it such a long sentence? Well, during this time, people just like him were being incarcerated at extremely high rates for drug crimes, many of them minor offenses. Communities filled with people of color were being stopped and frisked for an unreasonable cause. His community was a headquarters for drug busts. This stems back to the social control that during that time, blacks represented 14% of the drug traffickers, but were 74% of the drug traffickers behind bars. While whites were 74% of the drug traffickers, and we're only 10% of the people behind bars for drug crimes. Oh God, for drug crimes. You're probably wondering why I bring up the war on drugs. Well, people argue that inequality in prisons is still present. According to a recent data collection done in 2012, people of color make up 60% of the people behind bars, despite being only 30% of the US population. So what's the explanation for this? There are 3 ways I try to wrap my head around this. The first way this can be viewed is that white Americans just don't commit crimes. Obviously, that's not true. The second way this can be viewed is that people of color are genetically more inclined to commit crimes. Something in their genes makes them more criminal, so their crime rates have been shooting through the sky. Let that sink in. Sounds ignorant saying it out loud, right? Because it's just not true. However, many people believe this, and I've heard many ignorant comments about it, like in my history class that day. The third way this can be viewed is not that people of color are genetically more inclined to commit crimes. The problem stems from racial and economic oppression. And what I mean by this is that our legal and justice system is inherently biased against people of color. Yes, inherently biased. These people aren't just racial or ethnic minorities. They're also at an economic disadvantage. The system is designed this way on purpose, so these people cannot fight back. They don't have a voice. How many of you worry about incarceration within your family? As an African American male, I have a 1 in 3 chance of being incarcerated within my lifetime. I fear for my life, my brothers, my cousins, and many of my African American peers. One thing my mom worried about when I was born was that the corrupt system of mass incarceration would take her son away. As a mother, you shouldn't have to worry about that for your child. So my question here today is, does mass incarceration really put away all the bad guys? And is it fair to every race in America? That man I talked about earlier, that was my uncle. My uncle has been out of jail for 6 years now. After 17 years of constant monthly visits, I have been able to see him on a regular basis. My uncle has not let this system stop him. He has juggled 3 jobs, works at a sober house to make sure people don't make the same mistakes he made, and runs a phone business in Worcester. Although the system put my uncle's life on hold, he has showed us that he is not what the justice system proved him to be. My uncle was fortunate, though, to be able to come out of prison and come home to a family supporting him. Many African Americans are released from prison and have nothing due to high incarceration rates within their family. Prisons become their home. My family and I made sure that didn't happen to my uncle. My uncle is an amazing man, and I wish to embody many qualities I wish to embody many of his qualities as I grow up to be a working man in society. Here at Wayland High School, I try to talk about race, but I seem to be denied and looked at as if I'm crazy. It hurts because there's clearly a problem. Racism's still alive, and we as Americans need to start conversations to provoke a response, negative or positive. We have to start somewhere. It works. I've done it. So what is the color of justice to you? Well, I'm still answering that question today. However, I do know that racial and economic oppression, it exists, and it's happening right now across the world. Be empathetic. Step out of your comfort zone and accept the facts. Most importantly of all, check your privilege. By taking these steps, we are able to make connections. And by making these connections, we become socially aware of other people's problems. And then no one would ever have to feel how I felt during history class that day. Thank you.